It is no large stretch of the imagination to think that when our great sages say Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher, they might very literally be saying Moses our rabbi. The rabbis certainly think of Moses as a rabbi. They make the case quite clear in the first Mishnah of Pirkei Avot, in this carefully constructed history which links the rabbis into the grand transmission of the Torah. And while they never make this second point explicit, it did occur to me recently that if Moses is the very first rabbi, then perhaps Joshua and Caleb are the very first chavruta. A chavruta pair is the classic rabbinic method of learning, where two people are tasked to read, study, partner together as equals. Each one sharpens and pushes the other to be a better thinker. They argue, they disagree, they debate, and in a good chavruta pairing, their respective strengths form a middle ground which propels both of them to a combined level that neither could achieve on their own. For instance, the iconic pairing of Hillel and Shammai are always remembered together, except maybe during Pesach, during the sandwich, because their strength comes not from each of their individual arguments, but from how combined they represent the potential for Judaism to examine all sides of an issue. In this week's Torah portion, Shlach Lecha, we read the story of Joshua and Caleb, or as it is more commonly known, the story of the spies. 12 tribal leaders are sent into the land of Israel, and 10 come back with a negative report. It is too much for us. Let's go back to Egypt. Let us die in the wilderness. Only Joshua and Caleb return with a positive, hopeful vision for the future. Ole na'aleh, we must go up, we must succeed, we must do this. It seems significant that there are two voices who come back with this positive report, not a singular voice. And there is no element of Torah which is not intentional, according to our rabbis. Every letter, every vowel reveals some great hidden truth of the universe. And in fact, in Midrash Tanchuma, our rabbis go so far as to point out that the Torah during this parsha always mentions Caleb and Joshua in the same breath. They are always together throughout the narrative so that we will learn that they are equal. And the rabbis go one step forward and they say, just as Moses and Aaron are equal. And perhaps you are surprised to hear that the rabbis, at least here, consider Aaron to be the equal of Moses. But this is one of the great differences between our modern Western culture and the world of rabbinic Judaism. Today, in the secular world, we often equate genius, brilliance, leadership with solitude. We think about the quote-unquote great man of history, this narrative which is often still taught that says the right man in the right time at the right place will change the course of the world. And if I asked you to open up your phones, I don't think it would take you very long on YouTube or a streaming service to find a movie or a show where the tortured artist pushes away every single person who loves them in their quest to create whatever their great work is, whether that is art, or whether that is science, or whether it is the invention which will save the world. In Judaism, though, genius is rarely a solitary endeavor. Our Torah even goes as far in Parshat Yitro to reprimand Moses for trying to take on all the problems of the Israelite people himself. Brilliance and leadership in the model of Moshe and the rabbis comes from being paired with an equal. It comes from being part of a team. It comes when you enter into Kihila Kedosha, sacred community, not when you cut yourself off from everyone around you. And this is perhaps most clear in the Talmudic account of Rabbi Yochanan and his great chavruta Rish Lakish. As the story goes, Rish Lakish was a bandit king, doing the things that bandit kings do, wandering around the wilderness looking for someone to rob. And he saw a beautiful maiden bathing in a pool and jumped in, and surprise, it was Rabbi Yochanan. He said, "Your beauty should have been made for a woman." And Yochanan answered, "Your strength should have been made for Torah. Come marry my sister, she's almost as beautiful as me, and study Torah with me." And he agrees. And Rish Lakish becomes a great philosopher, a great rabbi, a great sage. Years pass, and he and Yochanan study together as chavruta. They delve into the greatest mystery of the law. Each one pushes the other to even greater heights, but one day they fight. One day they have an argument and it gets personal. And then, unexpectedly, before they can make up, Lakish dies. Yochanan is furious. His rage turns inwards. It edges towards madness. His friends try to find him a new chavruta. They send him someone brilliant. And Yochanan tests him, offers him an incredible sermon, and says, "Well, what do you think?" And the new chavruta, the young man, says, "Rabbi, it's a perfect point." And Yochanan shouts, "Bah! I know it was perfect. Do you need me to tell me that I argued perfectly? Lakish would have told me 10 ways that I was wrong." And then, slowly, without his partner, Yochanan fades, and he dies as well. We need each other. We need each other because it is not good for us to be alone. We need each other to form sacred community, the bonds of life, the bonds of ritual, which make us stronger, which make us better. As a people, we are stronger when we are pushed by each other to accomplish more, to dream bigger, and to stand up for what we know is right. Today, the world is filled with challenges and obstacles, and as much as we have surrounded ourselves with this Western culture, we find that we are often being shouted at, "You have to handle it. You and you alone. You're the only one who can do it." And in fact, I think if we saw the story of the spies told today through the eyes of a Western society, there would only be a Joshua. There would be no Caleb, because here in the West, we seem to prize a story of the solitary hero who speaks the truth against the impossible odds. But this Shabbat, I would encourage you to look at our Torah, to look into our rabbinic tradition, which offers up a very different path and a very different story. Brilliance does not come from standing alone. We overcome and rise to new heights when we are paired together. A chavruta can help us push back against a community which is saying a truth or a reality that we know is not really what happened. A chavruta can help us see a future that we might have written off as impossible. A chavruta can give us hope when we are unsure of it ourselves. There are 10 spies, and they come back with a negative report, and only a chavruta feels like they can share the truth. Why then? Why is this chavruta at this pivotal moment in Jewish history? Perhaps it is because God wants us to know that when we strive to be leaders in our Jewish community, we are never alone. Shabbat Shalom.